You say, wow, this guy is a professional. If you see the way he attended to me, just like NIPAM has taken care of us. Can we give NIPAM a clap, please? Competence without context. And the missing link is the execution architecture. The systems, do we go back to do any MEL? Do we put systems in places, dashboards, to even monitor those that have come for training? Do we engage their supervisors? After the training, what has changed? Or let me say, what has improved? And then the systems, not skills. The structural institutional challenges, not the individual skill deficit. Oh, okay, you want me to face that? Okay, my glasses will not let me. Okay, so the structural institutional challenges, not individual skill deficits. And let me tell you, just take, for example, you send a questionnaire around and you're asking people for what do we call it, needs assessment, or you're doing needs assessment, you'll find out that most people will write the skill they need. I don't know if any of us has experienced that. It's the skills that they need that they would write. It does not necessarily follow that it is what would make their institutions better. I had one before I came here, and honestly, more than 150 people put digital literacy. And we were trying to base it, beside each other. Okay, so which department is that person? You just need basic skills. So we end up developing individual skills, not the competencies that the organizations require. And so Nigeria has done something very good, which I'd love to share on this platform, and has turned a national strategy into a professionalization architecture. And the first one was strategy with a delivery address. I like that caption, delivery address. It's situated somewhere, and it's situated inside the strategic implementation plan 2021 to 2025, which makes capacity building its first pillar, plus talent management. The second one was certification that means something. So now to be an HR practitioner, you have to be certified by the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, and that's been the only institution, as of October 2025, that's had the statutory authority to certify professionals. And then the career progression moves up to the directorate level, and you must have that certification. So it means that we're intentionally professionalizing the HR. So we come to the reforming the reformers. There's also the National HR Competency Framework that was introduced, and it has to be anchored by the various government training institutes that we have in the country. And that's why you have the acronyms, ASCON. There's also the Public Service Institute. There's the CMD that's been made the regulator. So before you can even be a trainer, you must be certified by CMD. So everything is going into controls that ensures that professionalization is put on the front burner. And training before the chair, not after. So we have a mandatory training program for chief executives of federal government parastatals. And that is, I like to use the word induction. Unfortunately, most of them would have resumed before they come into this. But consciously, Nigeria in 2020, through the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, came out with a circular that says, once you're appointed as a DG or a CEO or a MD, you must go for the mandatory training program at the Administrative Staff College of Nigeria. And that is just for you to understand the government of the business of government, the procurement processes, the accounting processes, the public service rules, because you are better off having an idea, even if you will not be a guru, before you get into trouble. So those are parts of some conscious efforts that was made by the Nigerian government. And then I just put them in this way to say that professionalization without a legal anchor is just an aspiration, because governments change. Somebody might come tomorrow and does not like it. How do you question that? As long as it's not in the law, it's very easy to yank off. So we make sure that the HR initiative that was done in October 2025 was anchored legally. So it's come to stay. The certification that is tied to career progression has also been done legally. So we are closing the gaps that can affect the implementation of professionalization. And so the structural argument is that HR is no longer a generalist administrative function. We are beginning to treat it like a profession, like law, like medicine. It demands demonstrated competency. Thank you. It's a good place to clap because it's very important. It demands demonstrated competency. And I'll give you an example. Unfortunately, it can't be off record because there's camera. I had an experience where 140 people wrote for annual leave in December. I don't know whether we're trying to make anything out of that. In December. So how do 140 people leave the office in December? And so when I called one of the HR, I said, HR, I'm confused. Is this for last year or this year? She said, oh, it's for this year, ma'am. Everybody, they're even ready, but they'll come back in February. It takes you as an HR, certified HR, to know that annual leave is year-specific. Did I make any points there? It's year-specific, so you cannot take your leave in December and be coming back in February 2026. It will only be on exception. And that's why we're very happy that we're professionalizing HR, because for those of us in public administration institutes, we know that HR is like an engine room in our places of work. So for those of us that are in HR, congratulations. We are no longer generalist administrators. We will be certified, it will be anchored in the law, and then we can be talking about being sincere to the issue of professionalization and take it very seriously. Reform training institutions, or they will keep training for reform that never comes. And I want us to understand that. So like I said, I had a model that I developed when I was in Oxford. I finished last month, and it was stress-tested by the Blavatnik School of Government, and it's a very simple model. And what does it tell us? It's practitioner-developed because I'm in the system, and it just says, what do we need to do differently? When we train in the traditional way. It's time for a paradigm shift. What reform are we even targeting? A ministry of, I'm trying to use the Nigerian name, Ministry of Interior. And they're in charge of passports and immigration and all, like they call homeland in some countries. Home Affairs, thank you. The Honorable Minister was making some remarks, and he said, at a point in time, we had almost $500 million. And so finally, is the call to action. If we must professionalize, we say anchor by law. Professionalization is not by word of mouth. It requires a statutory foundation. I don't know if we have lawyers with us here. And clarity on which body would certify. What certification means for their careers. Because there has to be a link. And is what separates a meaningful reform from well-intentioned activity. That means let's move away from well-intentioned and nice written activity. Let's put action to it. And then, like I said, we must link to career. That's an incentive that makes people want to follow that path. So if your training is divorced from promotion, it has no input into promotion. It doesn't count. So where is the incentive? And consequence management, like I said, will always remain voluntary because we don't enforce it. So Nigeria's own reform explicitly conditions deployment preference on certified status. So we can use that as an incentive. Because in the process of professionalization, people learn more things and how to do it better and where you're crossing the line. And so they become better at what they do. And that, in the long run, impacts on the system. Not even in the long run, in the short run. Somebody told me, DGMA, it's because you are new. Can we deploy the auditor to procurement? He's a good man. Am I going to work with this a good man? I said, I'm sorry. Justify that in writing and quote the PSR. So I wonder where the PSR will tell me to take an auditor to procurement. He's not a certified procurement expert. So why should we? Embedding reform from conception. If you are aware that government has some policies in place that will speak to some newer things, don't wait until it gets to you. Maybe government decides today to set up an agency for road transport or something. You should already know, should be circumspect and already know that, okay, government has already done this, it's passed the reading, even though we've not been written officially. But why can't we start planning for how to train in road transport management or traffic management or something like that? Create relevance. And then professionalize by cadre. And like I said, don't wait for a wholesale system reform. If what government is churning out is a particular cadre, then follow suit and help government to sequence by cadre and sector. Initially, we didn't have procurement officers. You know, everything was done by admin, generalist function. Then procurement officers came. Then later, traffic management officers came. And then we begin to see that as we're segmenting the system, as MDIs, we need to go with the flow and understand what the system needs and support in professionalizing those systems. And you will see at the end of the day, we are together the better for it because the citizens then benefit from the training and what we're trying to implement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that very helpful and inspiring presentation from Dr. Adepoju. Thank you. Thanks. I liked your message, which is very strong, particularly reminding us that as PSTIs, we must stop putting ourselves in the periphery. You know, always say, no, we are trainers, we are not frontline service departments, we have nothing to do with this, nothing to do with that. But you are saying we must view ourselves as a delivery platform. The PSTI, yes, that's very powerful. If there's a backlogs on passports, we provide training, the backlog, so that it's clearly linking the work we do to frontline service delivery. I thought that was quite exciting. And also with the drive to professionalize through certification, there must be a professional association that takes responsibility for each of us here, so that you are able to say, if you are a chartered accountant, the CFO, if you have done something, where is your institute to tell us what must happen to you now that the irregular expenditure is really going on and not changing? So thank you very, very much for that input. I won't take too much time because we don't have enough time anyway. We move on now to our second presentation, which is Dr. Nancy Mache, who is the DG of ZIPAM, the Zimbabwe Institute of Public Administration and Management. My neighbor, I forgot to introduce myself, Lakela Kaunda, from the National School of Government in South Africa. I forgot to introduce myself. Dr. Mache, okay, as I said, is a DG of ZIPAM. She's a highly accomplished woman leader who is a chartered global management accountant with extensive public, private, and international experience. She holds a PhD in business strategic management, a bachelor's honors degree in economics from the University of Zimbabwe, alongside an MBA from Edinburgh Business School. She currently serves as a non-executive director for ZBS Insurance Company and the Forestry Commission of Zimbabwe and a number of other boards, so she's quite versatile. She's also an award-winning executive, having been named among Zimbabwe's 50 most inspirational women 3 years running, ranked 6th amongst best women directors, and also one female board chairperson of the year. So we have someone quite accomplished, and we are all ears to listen to you, Makelwan. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. A very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I will ride on the protocols that already have been established. I will speak to you, that was my intention, so don't look in that corner, look at me. I'm very honored and yet very, very humbled to have the opportunity to share the stage and to share this room with highly accomplished individuals, people whom I have read about, and I'm now meeting them on the stage. People we look up to and are our mentors in the field of public administration leadership and in the field of academics. Ladies and gentlemen, we meet today and this afternoon under a theme that captures both our most common challenges as African public sector management, and yet our possibilities. Building institutional capacity and professional public service. There are two sub-themes in this main topic. On one hand, building institutional capacity. What does it mean for us as Africans? The capabilities and resource capacity of our public institutions to effectively perform its duties, to deliver services, to achieve our set mandates, have never been put to test before than in this day's ever-changing VUCA environment. On the other hand, the need to professionalize the public service so that the public service is not only skilled, not only qualified, but to have a committed public service, committed to serve the citizens effectively. And the need to have a public service which is not only ready for the 21st century challenges, but a public service which is future ready for the ongoing global challenges that we wake up with every day of our lives.
Let me take this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to remind you that Africa's Development Agenda 2063 and the SDGs at large, which are to end poverty, to protect our planet, and to ensure peace and prosperity, will not be delivered by the policy documents that we set. I'm sorry, Honorable Minister, if he's still here, or his representatives. I'm not challenging your policies here. The African problems will not be delivered by the window dressing strategy plans that we set, but by institutions that are results oriented, by a public service who have the competence, the integrity, the professionalism, and the mindset to turn plans into results for the good of the citizenry. It is only when we have accepted that responsibility can we implement everything that we have heard from morning until now, and everything that we will hear for the next 2-3 days as we go back to our different countries. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that central to this problem is the urgent need to transform, a transformation for sustainable development. A transformation that begins with us, the leadership, for the African public management development institutions and for our governments at large. The transformation which is led and driven by the leaders, because it is only the leaders that can drive professionalism, that can drive capacity development. Now, where is our challenge today as leaders? Do we need somebody to tell us that? It's something we already know. Let's face it. Where is our challenge? Across the African continent, and perhaps beyond, governments face the same reality. The list is endless, but I'll pick a few for the sake of time. I want to believe that knowledge is siloed. That's probably our number one challenge. Silo knowledge. It's my knowledge. If I share this with the next ministry, with the next department, with the next institution, I will lose the credibility. They will gain the credibility. Siloed knowledge. Lessons from one public institution or ministry is rarely transferred to another so that we all learn as we grow. No, we are siloed. The number two factor, I won't dwell much on it because it has been touched, technology. Technology is reshaping how services are delivered, not only in Africa, global-wise. And my brothers and sisters earlier on talked about the role of AI and the need to embrace AI. But where is our problem? Generally, public sector leadership is weak in adaptation and agility. Maybe we fear failure by nature of public service. You can get fired the next day. So we fear failure, and that fear inhibits our agility. So it's not that we don't know. We do. But we are afraid to act. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to be bold. The number three, or what I regard to be number three on my list, is tight budgets. Oh, yes, we know. Oh, yes, we have it on the plans, but the budget is limited. So what do? Should we continue making the same? It's now an excuse. It may be true, yes, but we need to think outside the box and maybe remove the box, one professor said. There's no box. Let's come up with ways to resource mobilize so that we become the people we want to be. My sister, the previous speaker, talked about recruitment and promotion on merit basis. We know ourselves. We know how we are recruiting, we know how we are promoting, and we have had. So I won't dwell much on that. Also, loads of monies are spent on audits, external audits, year in, year out. What do we do with the reports? Audit reports, bottom drawer. It's a compliance issue, isn't it? Technical skills reports across the board are being done. What do we do? And again, the previous speaker said it, that we know the skills gap, but we don't want to budget for it. It's a by the way, it's an additional, it's an afterthought. We won't go anywhere as long as we don't change that mindset. Of course, there are other challenges that we face as leadership, maybe which are beyond us. And let's face them. Climate shocks, the global warming causing havoc to the mother nature. We need to be adaptive and learn how to live within what we can't control. The economic debt pressure on Africa is a reality. And again, the statistics about youth unemployment, well, maybe before I go to youth unemployment, the statistics about the youth age groups. We've been told 70% of the world, or of our African population is the youth, 60 to 70%. And with that comes the unemployment problem with the youth. So as long as we do not create, generate, and capacitate our youth to be employed, to be active, we will have youth-related problems. In my country, it's not a secret that we are fighting drug abuse. And sooner or later, it will become a continental challenge if we don't address the demographics of our youth. Now, again, I said the list is endless. For the sake of time, maybe. Let me move on. Whatever I have not said remains here, but most of the things, we know them. And I'm just challenging you that we need a transformative mindset to deal with the issues that we already know, is what I'm saying. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what do we need to do? Leadership must proffer smarter and agile decision-making. In such a dynamic and disruptive environment, weak institutions become the bottleneck of the time. We therefore need a strong and intentional move to transform in order to deal with what faces us today. I am not going to go through a theoretical list of what we need to do. I'll take this opportunity to share some maybe success stories from my country. I am not saying we are doing it right through, but we do have some success stories which I thought I could share with my colleagues. Okay. My government have been addressing a number of issues to drive institutional capacity and professionalizing the public service. And here are some of the things that have been looked at. Some of these, they come under what I call 4 categories. The government have been looking at people looking at how to skill people, promote skilled workforce, qualification, merit-based workforce, competent management and leadership. The government has been looking at systems, the processes and mechanisms, governance and accountability, and promoting transformative culture. So here are a few things that my government has looked at. Number one, the government has put in an act called the Public Entities Corporate Governance Act. That act was put in 2018, but that act has been strengthened since 2021, post-COVID. And I was happy when I heard my sister saying, we need to institutionalize some of these things through the legal acts. So there you go. Now, what the government has done, which is supported by this act, number one, the government has put in a performance management, which we call performance contracting, across the public sector, starting from the highest offices in the minister's office. The minister must set his strategy, must put his annual plan, must put his KPIs, and the minister is evaluated by independent evaluators, which are appointed by the Office of the President and Cabinet through an open public procurement. So from the minister coming down to all the senior government officials. And top performers are rewarded at a ceremony which is officiated by His Excellency. To date, this has seen a lot of competition in terms of performance and delivery in our public sector. The minister will sit on you, what are you doing? Because the minister will only perform through the various ministry departments and agencies that are under them. That's one way we have promoted performance in our civil service. What is the role of NIPAM? Now, I want to always relate. We are an institution for public administration and management. Our government has done well. The performance contracting, our role has been to build capacity in the ministries and in the departments and across public sector in order for them to know how to do the performance management and contracting. So we have been busy in that perspective. So we teach performance contracting, we teach strategy planning, we teach monitoring and evaluation, corporate governance, amongst other courses. The government has also put in place a certified career progression. And I was happy to hear my sister talking about the same. And in my country, for senior management, if you have not done, amongst any other qualification, if you have not done either a management development program for middle management and a leadership skills development program, you will not be promoted. You need to satisfy that you qualify to go to the next level. The government has also put in place a compulsory work culture transformation across the public service. And facilitators are being recruited from both local and in the region to come and assist with this training. So those with this specific expertise, it's on demand right now in my country. The government have also put human resources information systems. This has been a star. It has transformed. Civil service now can receive their pay slips. We call them e-pay slips. Everyone can get their pay slips on the phone through an SMS message. They can log in. Jobs are being advertised on the Public Service Commission platform. And interviews for the most senior positions are being broadcasted. So if you challenge why so-and-so was appointed, go and search for the interview. If you are patient enough, sit there for the duration of the day, for the whole interviews. And if you know that this person was interviewed at 12 o'clock, go and fast forward 12 o'clock, you'll hear them being grilled. so that eventually when they are being appointed, you will know what they went through. A job evaluation and skills audit is also being implemented. And the reasons behind this is, in the central government and public service, the government is saying, when we say this is an accountant, this person must be an accountant right across the board. Their qualification as an accountant, their grade as an accountant, their benefits as an accountant, and they can be transferable, they can be modifiable. Rather than in one institution, an accountant is here, in another is there. That's what we are trying to do, job evaluation and skills audit. The government has also put in place what we call program-based budgeting. All activities are being clustered into programs. There is no longer a general budget where you apply for fiscal, support for a budget. A budget must be related to a program. A program is related to your mandate, or what we call national development plans. So a program has a sub-program, has a sub-program. Anything that does not fit into a program of your institution will not be supported by Treasury. So the lists, okay, maybe I'll talk about ICT. There has been a huge investment in ICT, which has improved efficiency in a very big manner. Productivity has improved. It resulted in clearing of backlogs of, passports, application and issuances, national IDs, birth certificates, and so on. We are digitalized when it comes to, what do they call it? Civil registry. So the list of things the government has done is quite substantive. There's still a long way to go. And of course, budgetary constraints are there, but these are some of the things that I thought I would share with my colleagues as a take home, and maybe as we share nuggets on how to improve the institutional capacity building and professionalization of the public service. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say, sustainable development and inclusive growth in Africa will be written by us, and it will be implemented by us. We have an obligation to do it today, so that those youth that we talked about, 70% of them, when they come in office tomorrow, they will not spit on our graves. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, DG, for those thoughtful words. We always say people work in silos. Now we know another terminology, siloed knowledge. The siloed knowledge. Thank you for those reminders that there are some really serious obstacles to building strong institutional states and capable institutions. Those siloed knowledge, lessons rarely transferred. And the biggest one of all, the fear of failure, so that you just sit in your office, do nothing because you are scared of making mistakes. Thank you for that. So you'd rather just do nothing, nothing at all. So we have a lot of work to do then as PSTIs to deal with that. We were given until 14:45. We didn't do badly. Now it's 14:50 now. Thank you. It's not bad at all. So since we now we need to go to the sessions because it will be concurrent. But if there are two burning questions, one each for my two DGs, DG Zimbabwe, DG Nigeria, we can take only one question for each of them, nothing more, so that we can then go. I see there is already a question over there. Okay, there's two questions already. Good. One for each of the DGs. What happened to this mic? It was here. Yes. There was a question from Lesotho Owen over there.
Yeah, mine is just a comment and maybe to go into a question. First of all, these sessions, all of them from morning up to now, are very informative. But my main worry is the message is going to the wrong people. Because most of the people who are supposed to be here, they are not here. And this is the problem that we have in terms of capacity building. What we have learned today, if you go to the executive director or the permanent secretary and say, this is what we have learned, you will be told, get out. You are wasting my time. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. That's number one. Secondly, I think we need to separate politics with administration. You'll find that politicians get into their own fight to get into positions. And when they take over, they bring the people who have been supporting them without any merit. And then they take all the people who have been trained for a very long time. I think there is a problem there, a very big problem. I don't know how do you deal it with your countries, in Zimbabwe and other countries as well. How do you separate politics with administration? Because this is the main problem that we have here. And in most cases, you get executive officers who don't understand what is happening, like HR, for example. They don't want to listen to an HR officer, irrespective of whatever advice you want to give them. And like I said, if you train all these officials, when they go back to the office, they are told, you don't know anything, I'm in charge here. So if I can get the clarity of how do you work, separate politics with administration, I'll definitely appreciate. I thank you very much.
Yeah, the most difficult question, yes. Okay, there was a second question over there. Yes, from Lesotho.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Allow me again to thank the presenters for the brilliant presentations. I would like to talk to Zimbabwe on the issue of performance management rewards. Can you try to maybe sort of elaborate more on that? Are you talking about performance-related pay or just rewards for maybe officers who have been viewed as having extraordinarily performed? Or are you rewarding the organization, the ministry? That is, because at the end, we want to see improved performance within ministries. It's supposed to be an effort of all officers together to ultimately see improvement in the office, not just individuals. So that's what we are also grappling with back at home in terms of how do we actually reward the officers. So maybe if you can assist in that regard. And also if we are still talking about employee appraiser, appraisee, that is the appraiser being the one assessing an employee, how do you deal maybe with conflicts? Because sometimes you find that an employee may not be satisfied with maybe the assessment undertaken by the appraiser. So how do you deal with conflicts of that nature? Sometimes you find that even if there is a plan, an officer has planned that he's going to do maybe specific assignments, but because of reasons beyond maybe his control, not because he's a failure or is an underperformer, maybe you plan to undertake training. In Lesotho, you'll find that we're experiencing snow now. So you're not able to train in the districts because of snow. As such, you haven't failed. It's just that there were constraints beyond your control. So how do you deal with such? Are you going to say that I didn't perform, so I'm not going to be rewarded, or there's something that will be done? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Professor Makanya. Oh, I said two questions. Eish, now I'm but there's no way I can say no to Prof, sorry.
No, thank you so much, Program Director. It's not a question, it's a comment, because I like this idea of training and the question to what end. because I think it makes a lot of sense that it's not just training for the sake of ensuring that you can tick the box that I've been trained in the following, without any kind of results that can be expected. So I know that in industry, it's simpler to do that. Seeing that they have what they will refer to as a group executive that is responsible for human resources. And the manner they do it is that that individual has the responsibility of the overall direction of that company. Now, within our own environment, in government, I don't think we have that. So what will be the anchor so that whoever then, considering the professionalization, agenda that is underway, that will guarantee that you can get those results? Because if you don't have that, we'll still sit with a similar kind of challenge that we are confronting at this point. I mean, I know that from the side of National School of Government, you've targeted the same area, that is human resources, but also supply chain management. I guess you will understand, in our case, supply chain management is important, when you think about what is currently the challenge facing our country, with corruption and so on and so forth, that might be linked with that. But I still want to argue that the problem might not necessarily be lying with those that we are targeting. Because remember that in these environments, it is those who are holding positions that may not be susceptible to corruption who really are pulling the strings. So how do you understand the kind of sophisticated links so that you can then identify those who are supposed to be undergoing this kind of training? So it's a complex area, but I think it's important for us to raise it because it is those who are in this room that must begin to think the strategic, handling of that process so that we can be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll have the wrap-up and responses from the two DGs. I think let me get the mic. You can respond from where you are seated.
Thank you very much. I would just like to make a comment, really. The first person who spoke about politics and what was it?
Administration.
Politics and administration. And the points that my brother was raising also here, I'll just like to make a comment on both. Two ways. I don't see us separating politics. I don't want to use the administration, I just want to say politics and government. It might have two sides, but really, I don't see us being able to separate it. Because when the politicians are coming, they're coming with their mantra. They're coming with their policies. But from the other side, which is, let me use the word civil service, we also wait to see what they want to do. More often than not, I can tell you categorically, we are also waiting to see how far they can go. So there's an unspoken, give me the word, please. There's an unspoken way that we communicate, that we're both looking out for each other. Honestly, and that's the truth because I've been in the system. So you're asking, as a political appointee, you're asking a civil servant, do me a brief or tell me what's been happening. You are going to get 30% of the information. And I'm being generous with the number. You can feel me, I know. You're going to get 30% of that information. And they will wait for you to ask them the next thing. Most often, somebody will tell you, oh, you didn't ask, ma. How can you ask what you don't know? That's on the one hand. The politicians, sometimes they're also coming with a mindset that says, these people will not let me succeed. So this is my plan. Follow it or nothing else. So we have a kind of conflict that we don't speak to. So within us, somebody used the word mindset. We must be intentional about how we want to approach these situations because they are real life. And they affect us in different ways. Sometimes they are even the people you know before power. And they're already on edge. So emotional intelligence should kick in. And the ultimate should be, so how do I put this forward? You may not likely get your answer at once. You might get your answer at the end of the tenure or towards the end. But at least make effort to make sure that you achieve, rather than they don't want to do it and I'm not going to do it either. The problem remains and the systems suffer for it. And I think it answers both questions one way or the other. Thank you.
I think the question was long, but I'll try to respond to what I captured. There was a question about the reward system. The reward system is married to the performance, right from the top to the middle management. So far, the system is yet to go down to the junior staff. But from the minister, executives, senior management, middle management, rewards are married to performance. And I think there was a question about if there is conflict. If there is conflict, it's escalated to the next level. And if need be, we have the independent evaluators who evaluate, ministers and senior government officials and executives of institutions. So I think, it just goes to the next layer. I think that was all I remember from the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, because most of them were comments. I know colleagues are anxious now because they've got papers to present. So let me just ask you to give a round of applause to our two DGs. Thank you so much for that setting input for the theme which we are going to have now, which was building institutional capacity and professionalization, which will run concurrently now in terms of the presentations with the morning session. So we shall leave the stage and we'll hand over to Dr. Buti Salome, who will tell us the logistics, where do we go and how. Thank you very much, DGs. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause to our chairperson, Dr. Kaunda, and our two Director Generals for very informative presentations. We are moving into the breakaway sessions now, and like indicated before lunch, the morning sessions and the afternoon presentations will now be merged. They will happen now at the same time. So we have 2 hours to listen to these presentations. How it will happen, the first presentations will be on sub-theme 1, governance, accountability, and ethical leadership in the African public service. That will be chaired by Ms. Ngovi Shita Yachira. So, and then the rapporteur of that session will be Mr. Lista Chaka. So there are the topics that will be presented under that themes. 1, civil service neutrality in Ethiopia, the conquered battle. Then we have another one that was one. So the one that was in the same sub-theme in the afternoon will also join that session. So all the sessions that were in the same sub-theme afternoon will be joining that sub-theme. Am I clear? Okay, let me do this. The first one, let's take the first one. Sub-theme, governance, accountability, and ethical leadership in the African public service. The topic that was going to be presented in the morning is civil service neutrality in Ethiopia, the unconquered battle. So if you go in the afternoon, in terms of our program, if you go into the afternoon, there is developing a performance management implementation guideline for South African local government, and another one from informal settlement to dignified community, transformative leadership in providing water and sanitation in permanently temporary South African township extension areas. So all these presentations will happen in the same venue, under the same chairperson and same rapporteur, and the venue will be now the G22, G25. When you go out of the hall, you go to the receptions. On your immediate right, you follow the corridor. That's where we have G22 up to G25 in that area. So the same will apply to some sub-theme building institutional capacity and professionalizing public service, which will be chaired by Ms. Kakololo Lebeka. Jobet Tawana will be the rapporteur. Transformative Public Service Leadership in Namibia, an emotional intelligence-based analysis of foundational skills gaps across offices, ministries and agencies, public enterprises, regional councils, and local authorities. That will be in F07 up to F09. The same, it's almost opposite to each other. So where we have G22, F07 to F09 is also located there. Then we move, the other papers that were in the same sub-theme in the afternoon will also join that group. Then another sub-theme is inclusive public service, gender, youth, and the vulnerable groups in leadership and development. That will be chaired by Patrick Tando. Tando is not around, but Prof. Wilberforce will chair that sessions, and the rapporteur, Anel Extien, is also not around, but Dr. Peterson will be the rapporteur for that session. So the power of register, how language choice shapes transformative public service leadership skills, training institution in Kabwe district in Zambia. So that will be the topic presented in that, under that sub-theme, and that will be on C01, C02. That is the venue or the hall just down here. So you go out, either through this or through that, then you will find yourself in C01, 02. And all other that were taking place in the afternoon will be there. Then the other theme will be partnership, regional integration, and the collaborative governance for Agenda 2063. Royce Ripan and Mr. Capolo Alvina will be the chairperson and the rapporteur. So the topics will be the role of living labs for improved social responsibility and sustainability. And the other topics in the afternoon will also happen in the same venue, C03, C04. It's also down here. Then this will be the last sub-theme, resilient public services for sustainable development and climate adaptation. So Tiberi Morapo will be the chair, supported by Johanna Shkongo is not around. Madam Saima will be the rapporteur for that session. And the topics under that sub-theme is food poisoning in Namibia's Kavango regions, a strategic public health social and food security analysis, as well as conceptual framework for community approach to combat food insecurity in the Eastern Cape, South Africa, and the other that was going to take place in the afternoon will be in G09, G11, still that side, where we have F07, F09, G22, G25. So we have 2 hours to listen to these informative presentations, I believe, from now on until 5 o'clock. In our program, we have a cocktail slated at 5:30, so we have 30 minutes to prepare for the cocktail. But for the next 2 hours from now on to 5 o'clock, we'll listen to these presentations. So the chairperson, please help me to read those who are interested to listen to topics as indicated in the program. Doc, I see your hand there. Sorry, Doc. Yes, the digital transformation and innovation for public service, public sector renewal. Mr. Sankwasa Movita will be the chairperson with Madam Christine Songano, a rapporteur, and we will have artificial intelligence and human resource development adoption, implementations, and practitioner competencies. So that will be on LB01, LB04. LB01, LB04? Okay, very good. So for the digital transformation and innovation for public service or sector renewal, because this very same venue will be empty at that point, so we stay here, we remain here. So it will take place here. Thank you. All right. The time is not on our side. I think we can start moving to our venues and listen to the presentations. Chairpersons, please read the team to the venues.
and then Brenda Ngosia and Lamek. Brenda Ngosia, are you here? Is Karabo by Pindi here? Are you there? Wonderful. Do you want to join me up here on the stage, please? While we're sorting out the technology and our input makers are getting connected, let me introduce myself. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Louise Lepan. I'm a Chief Director at the National School of Government. I'm responsible for senior management training and professional development. It's my pleasure to chair and anchor this particular session called Partnerships, Regional Integration and Collaborative Governance for Agenda 2063. We will notice that all the inputs from this morning were speaking to how we can do the work of knitting the African continent together. And this is why we need partnerships, regional integration, and collaborative governance to achieve the goals and outcomes of Agenda 2063. So, Prof, if you're ready. Prof. Danielle Nell Sanders is going to come up and she's going to talk on the role of living labs for improved social responsibility and sustainability. Prof, you'll help me with the time, 15 minutes input, and then we'll have an open on questions, and then when all the presentations are done, we'll do a discussion. Thank you.
Let me just check it. Great. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Nell Sanders. I'm from the College of Business and Economics from the University of Johannesburg. And my talk today will be on the role of living labs for improved social responsibility and sustainability. But before I start, I want to present you with an observation. This image, firefighters, and it's actually firefighters in a local municipality in Namibia. But this image for me represents the crisis management mode that local governments operate in. So in a firefighter mode, that's what I call it. They operate from one crisis to another crisis. And what I want to present in my work today is that we shouldn't operate as firefighters, but we should move towards architects where we design risk-informed decisions, make risk-informed decisions and systems. And there's a number of issues that I identify in my research that we are misdiagnosing. The first one being, and DG spoke of it earlier, we don't need another policy, and I tend to agree with that it's not a policy problem, but the problem is implementation gap, weak institutions. The very institutions and systems that should be creating resilience and agility are indeed creating risks and producing more risks. Okay, so my research problem, my research has focused predominantly on the role of public-private partnerships as an alternative service delivery mechanism for improving local government service delivery. But recently my work has shifted more towards more inclusive type of partnerships, and these are in particular people, public-private partnerships. So no longer just having the public and the private partners, but also including people into these partnerships. So I look at to what extent can living labs function as adaptive governance mechanisms that enable local governments to transition from reactive crisis management towards results-oriented governance. And this is exactly transitioning from the firefighter mode towards architects. And in doing so, I consider living labs as a mechanism to move towards an architect type of system. But firstly, my research methodology, I based the framing of my research, the analytical approach is based on the Undlalamiti scenarios that's been developed in South Africa by an institute called Mistra. And they developed 3 scenarios for the future of 2035. The medium case scenario, the Hadida home, is continuing economic stagnation, increased debt, struggling reform, and what is referred to as a finger-pointing culture. Whereas the worst case scenario is the vulture culture, or the vulture society, and this represents total economic collapse, decline, severe crime, and hardship for for citizens in everyday life, and failed reform. And this is what we want to avoid. Whereas the best case scenario, this is where we want to be, is the weaver society. And we have a bird, the weaver bird, which is a community-based bird. There's an image on my slide of what the weaver bird looks like in where I come from in South Africa, and we have a lot of them in Johannesburg as well, where I come from. And these birds they signify community, grassroots approaches. And the weaver birds work together, they cooperate together, they collaborate. And this, it also signifies a bottom-up approach to service delivery. It signifies growth, progress, agility, successful reform, etc. So my work is based on the Weaver Society, because this is where we want to be, this is what we want to achieve. And the Living Labs model is in line with the Weaver Society. It is based on innovation hubs that provide communities, government, and business an opportunity to experiment, to test products, to test solutions, test policies before it's implemented and before it goes to the market. It also enables capacity development, learning, and innovation. And it is a mechanism to also hold government accountable. Which leads me to the second misdiagnosis that I've identified. And this is the misconception that government alone is responsible for reform. And in my research, I have found that this should not be the case. Government does not have all the capacity to deliver on it by themselves. And this is where Living Labs are key. The role of the community and citizens are key. And in my research, I frame Living Labs as governance actors within government reform. They should not be passive recipients of service delivery failure or backlogs. They should assist in filling service gaps and also assist where government needs assistance with identifying needs and demands. But let me define, before I go further, what a Living Lab is. Living Lab is based on an innovation hub where policies are tested before they are implemented. And it's based on collaboration between the community, government, and private sector. It also is based on, there's a strong element of knowledge and innovation exchange, and technology is also transferred to the community and before it reaches scale, so there is participation in the entire design thinking of innovation. And just an example of what a smart living lab would look like. This is an example I've put up on my slides. And this example is in an informal settlement And I want you to imagine a municipality facing ongoing problems in informal settlement with poor waste collection, unsafe pathways and lighting, water leakages, high unemployment, community distrust towards the municipality. So instead of using traditional top-down approaches where municipality designs solutions alone, local government would then establish a living lab inside the community itself. And it would look like something like this. This is just a simplified illustration of the different phases a living lab would go through. The first phase being problem identification. Here, instead of government identifying the problems by themselves, it is identified alongside citizens. It's based on active community workshops, participatory research, and digital feedback platforms. An example of this would be where residents would assist in identifying overflowing waste sites and unsafe dark pathways within the informal settlement. Second phase would be where the co-creation takes place, and this involves collaboration, where smart waste bins would be filled with sensors, solar-powered pathway lighting, community-managed water monitoring systems, and so forth. The third phase would be the real-world testing. So your second phase is where solutions are presented. Third phase would be where solutions are tested. Whereas, for instance, an example would be one block in the informal settlement or one road would receive the smart lighting, for instance. The second block would have digital water monitoring systems implemented, and so on. So it's testing of different solutions concurrently. Phase 4 would involve learning and adaptation, and this is where municipality would get data from these solutions. And then lastly, if the solutions were successful, it will be scaled to market. And this is a simplified example of living labs in an informal settlement. Currently, there are a number of living labs operating in Kenya, South Africa, and Europe has made use of a number of living labs to address social service, local service delivery challenges. Just a few points on the difference between traditional municipal projects versus living labs. Traditional projects are much more rigid and are based on fixed project plans. Citizens are recipients. They have limited flexibility, and consultation takes place at one point in time. Whereas with living labs, it's more agile. Citizens are co-creators, and learning outcomes are derived from projects. And it's an experimental approach as well. I have designed a reform ecosystem for local government, where the goal of living labs is not to replace the functions of local government or municipalities, but it's to work alongside. So in the local government reform ecosystem, you have your living labs where practice-based research is done and practical innovation takes place. And then the DG of, I think Dr. Nancy mentioned earlier that one of the challenges we face is limited resources, financial resources, and you mentioned to think out of the box. Now, one of the benefits of living labs is you can use innovative financing mechanisms. These include blended finance, crowdsourcing, and it could also be based on public-private financing as well. And then, of course, business also has a role to play, and government has an oversight regulatory role to play. And the goal is to become more responsive and not reactive. And in the system, each role player are contributing towards reform in this system. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all the major risks that are being faced for living labs, but the major ones is with any innovation, there's always a risk of unintended consequences. And this is particularly the case in fragile systems, such as some of the systems we have in South Africa and local government. So there has to be a coordination from a government perspective as well. And in my research, I have identified a number of innovative financing mechanisms, but crowdsourcing has proven as the most successful for living labs. So the role of government in living labs is not to just outsource a service, but to create an enabling environment to these living labs. And they need to ensure that regulation is not burdening the living labs. So my main recommendation for this study is that design thinking should be used in policy making, and those policies will then be tested and piloted through living labs. And the design thinking process is based on 5 phases, the first being where community provides inputs on what the needs are. The second phase is the needs assessment. And then the third phase is the brainstorming. That is the third phase where solutions are put on the table. And the fourth phase is prototyping, where solutions are tested. And these are the pilot projects. And then it's scaled to market and we derive feedback. So in linking back to my analytical framework that I use within the Weaver Society, if you look at a nest of a weaver bird, the nest is made up of different strands. So in reforming local government and service delivery, it will not just take one silver bullet, but it will take multiple stakeholders. And pooling resources through living labs provide agility for that. And it provides grassroots energy, accountability, and is based on lived experience of the community. My current work that I'm busy with at the moment, and which will be released in the next year, is I am busy developing a Living Labs toolkit for local government. And one of the risks of Living Labs is that it's not integrated into or aligned to integrated development planning. So the toolkit will focus on providing recommendations on how it can be aligned to integrated development planning in local government. And one of the main benefits of Living Labs, it stimulates local economic development from a business community perspective. Thank you very much. Questions? Or? Okay.
Thank you very much, Prof, for a very exciting presentation. Ties very nicely back to the theme of the conference, Transformative Public Service Leadership for Sustainable Development and Inclusive Growth in Africa. And the presentation puts people first, doesn't it? Hello, anybody there? Yes. It puts people first, so that in our language would be Batho Pele, yes? People first. Can I please teach you the Batho Pele clap? Yes? It goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, okay? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Let's give her a Batho Pele clap. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Thank you very much, Prof. We're going to take 1 or 2 clarity-seeking questions. Somebody that's curious or somebody that's appreciating. Thank you very much. I'm going to need a runner, please. Can I please have support? Please, your hand again, Madam. Thank you. Please tell me where you're from.
Okay, I'm from Zambia. My name is Eliona Kapapa. I work at the National Institute of Public Administration, and our executive director is the president for the Southern Africa, AMDIN. So thank you, Professor, for that insightful presentation on Living Labs. It took me back home where We co-created with a number of other stakeholders from Cabinet Office, from MDIs, another training institute for local, the Zambia Public Service Change Management Framework. And I love your focus where you are looking at participation, collaboration, so it is quite similar. So my concern is with our framework, what informed the framework were the concerns by the citizens on what was not working in government. So they came up with this app where citizens could complain about service delivery, and so government thought a framework needed to be developed, which is on the Cabinet Office website, and which can be scaled up to all ministries, line ministries, so that they address the issues that the citizens are concerned with. So with living labs, you are focusing on the community as well. So how are you going to identify these communities or the people that you work with in the community? That will help you as you do your experiment. Or maybe I should have started with this one. Have you done the experiment yet? Even at a small level, has it worked? And what were the challenges from that small piloting before it is scaled up? Otherwise, for me, it's a great idea, because no matter what reforms we come up with, as long as the community where these reforms have to work for, then it becomes a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Kobele and Dr. Kahunda. On this side, please, sir.
Thanks. My name is Kubele. I'm from the National School of Government, South Africa. Thanks for the presentation. It's insightful. One of the challenges that I know that municipalities are facing with, from the operational side, it's easy to implement, but from the delivery side, it's very difficult. It's issue around monitoring and evaluation. And if you can then say to the citizens, you want them to evaluate you, and they face issues of service delivery on a daily basis, it will be a horror movie. With your tool, how then do you link the two to be able to monitor the service delivery with the thinking that you have? Thanks.
Lovely. Dr. Kahunda. It's okay, we can take 6.
Thank you. Lakela Kaunda, also from the National School of Government. Just a question. I like this model of yours because it's a public, sort of linked to the existing public participation model, but it goes further, because the public participation model currently says, bring people to one room. What do you want? Do you want a road? Do you want this? And then government goes and designs the road. So how, in your study, how do you see it working out? Do the living labs work within the existing structures like your ward committees, or will it be a separate institution architecture, separate architecture altogether? Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm just going to take the privilege of being the chair and ask also a question, if I may. And it's tying on to what Dr. Kaunda has asked, is where, when you are executing your projects, where are they anchored? Where's the project anchored? So if it's the institution that's bringing in the lab and it's based in the community, when you leave, when the institution, when the university leaves, where is this project anchored? And then how is that funded in a sustainable way? Okay. So over to you. You can come up here, and then we'll move to the next speaker.
Thank you for those questions and comments. So first question is, how do we, the challenges we experience before when piloting, right? Then I understand correctly. So I think the biggest challenge, and this is throughout the entire life cycle until pilot, the final phase, scaling, is consensus and common goal. And this is the same challenge that's faced in your traditional public-private partnerships. So there has to be what we refer to in network governance as boundary spanners, because a living lab is based on network governance theory. And boundary spanners are kind of champions throughout the project life cycle that make sure that there's trust and everyone have the same narrative. That narrative is what has to take you through to completion of the life cycle. So it's about, and it's small scale development, these living labs. It's not large institutions. So it typically is easier to build trust and consensus in smaller type of projects. So this is one of the main challenges, but it's also a risk that can be mitigated fairly in a simplified way. It's the first question. The second question is in terms of monitoring and evaluation, right? So there's different types of living labs. The one type of living lab is where the purpose is to get feedback from community by itself. But that is not a sustainable type of living lab because that's a once-off type of participation. But the best model is get the citizens or the community to do the needs assessment, and they commit to contributing to that. So it's not we tell you as a government we need this road and you build it. No, but we have to be accountable in also building that road. And some of the projects that I've been working on has been mostly on community cleanups, waste management, and it would be, now to answer the next question also, it would be working with your ward councillors. So it has to be integrated within your formal structures. It's complementary to your formal institutions. And one of the benefits of the living labs is it provides real-time data. Now, to come back to the M&E question, is in the needs assessment, the needs are identified in the second phase, but with the finalization, once it goes to scale, the project, then there's a continuous feedback cycle because the community has to continuously work on upgrading, updating the project or the product. It depends on what it is. Is it electricity provision? Is it water testing? So there is a continuous feedback mechanism within a living lab. And then the final question is of the chair. The funding. So no living lab is the same, and that is one of the challenges. In theory, we know, in the literature, we know that a living lab is a people-public-private partnership, a multi-stakeholder partnership, but no living lab looks the same and have the same type of purpose. But in terms of funding, there is no single mechanism that is used in living labs, and it's combining different types of financing mechanisms, blended finance, because you will have your private sector that's involved. They will be charging a certain fee. Your community will then crowdsource funding for the community aspect. And there's been many living labs where ward councillors would be involved in crowdsourcing even for the particular project. So even public institutions can do crowdsourcing and crowdfunding. That has been the most instrumental and flexible mechanism. And then, of course, long-term sustainability in terms of financing is a challenge for any type of venture, any type of project, be it private, public. So it's no different in a multi-stakeholder partnership, and that's why the crowdfunding is quite successful because it's continuous funding. And I think that's the last question. Thank you very much.
Let's do another Batopele. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Really well done. Let's go to Lamek. I'm told that Lamek is online. This next paper is Public-Private Partnerships for Development under Agenda 2063, Leadership Institutional Coordination and SME Capacity Building in Malawi. And the authors of the paper are Brenda Ngosia and Lamek Malekano Chimberob. Apologies if I've massacred your name. Lamek, are you there? I'm really going to ask somebody to turn down the aircon. Switch off the aircon, please, Mampoki. Can you go there to the back and press the button? I think my ladies here in front are all under the blankets. Lamek, are you there? Or shall we take the next speaker? Is Karabo Bapindi, sir? You are here? Can we?
I'm here.
There you are.
Hello.
Lamek, let us see
Yes.
you, sir. We can hear you.
Thank you very much. I was checking whether it is already pre-loaded from that side, or can I load it here?
Technique. You can load it. So you must load it. They also have it this side.
Okay, thank you. So let me share with you then from this side.
Thank you. We can see. You can now put on full screen. Over to you, sir. You've got 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Lamek Shibero. Actually, I am from Malawi, and Malawi School of Government. I also happen to be one of the editors in the AMDIN journal. So I'll take you through the public partnership, a public-private partnership for the development under Agenda 2063. Since I have very few minutes, I will not take much on the introductory parts, but I think I will go straight to the results. But before I get into the results and the discussions, so let me just briefly share with you how we did the study. Actually, the study is actually focusing on the issues that are to do with the Agenda 2063, which is actually under the context where we are saying there are so many issues that are happening across the issues of public-private partnerships. Across Africa, the PPPs are increasingly used to bridge public sector resource constraints. However, evidence from the World Bank 2016 shows that the PPPs do not automatically translate into inclusive growth. For example, in Malawi, SMEs through central to national development continue to face structural exclusion due to weak institutional coordination and limited governance capacity. One of the challenges in terms of the progress is that the central challenge is not policy, so to speak, but it is actually the governance failure. So this slide actually just shows some of the key areas that we noted. In line with what also Hodge and Grave 2017 argue that the PPP's performance actually depends heavily on institutional and leadership quality. In Malawi, for example, fragmented government structures weaken coordination and also reduce the developmental impact over otherwise well-designed PPP frameworks. This study actually was conducted to examine how PPP governance systems influence the SME capacity development in Malawi, with these 4 or 5 specific objectives. And also the key research questions that are present there. But as I said, the key area that I want to concentrate on actually based on the results that we got from the study. We had also frameworks that actually informed this study, the public sector capacity theory, and also institutional theory and collaborative governance theory. The study was more of trying to understand how these theories actually are also informing the public-private partnerships and how this would help in terms of supporting the SMEs. We had that framework which actually looked at the independent, intermediate or mediating variables and also dependent variables, which I may not need to spend much time on that. However, going to the methodology, the way we did our study, there were several methods that we used. But the key aspect was that the mixed method approach was the one that actually used, that allowed integration of the statistical evidence with the institutional and governance insights, improving robustness in terms of policy relevance to understand how these issues actually interrelate. So we had a sample of about 250 SMEs and also 15 key format interviews, among other issues. As I said, I want to concentrate on the results. The results of the study showed that the findings that PPP governance arrangement in Malawi are partially institutionalized, but weakly coordinated. What we noted that much as the people have actually, they are taking into account the PPPs in terms of the SMEs, the governance arrangement is not all that strong. While formal structures exist, including policy frameworks and also support institutions, their effectiveness is constrained by limited transparency and also fragmented mandates and even stakeholder inclusion. It was noted that only 5% of SMEs reported awareness of government support policies, while participation actually remained very low. And so it was also shown that institutional visibility is skewed towards actually financial institutions with limited engagement with the specialized SME support agencies. And this suggests that the government arrangements are not sufficiently inclusive or accessible, limiting SME participation in PPPs, the decision-making processes. The second objective, which was looking at the contribution of the PPPs to SME development, results showed that the PPPs interventions demonstrate a significant positive impact on SME development outcomes, particularly in revenue growth, also profitability and market expansion, skills development, and access to finance. It was also noted that the PPP reach remains limited, with only 19% of the SMEs currently participating. And this showed that much as there is a development in terms of significant impact in terms of the SME development, positive SME development in terms of the revenue growth, among others, but very few are actually participating. Those only that are participating are the ones that are actually making some headways. And PPPs are efficiently and but not yet scaled or diverse enough to drive broader a broader SME participation and even in decision-making processes. Result number 3, what was noted is that the results highlighted leadership as a central determinant of the PPP performance. And the effective PPPs are characterized by strategic direction setting, trust building among stakeholders, and also facilitation of cross-sectional collaboration. Conversely, it was also noted that weak leadership contribute to poor oversight and also fragmented implementation and delays in service delivery. So we noted that the role of leadership in PPP is not all that strong because moderate policy effectiveness rating further indicated that the leadership capacity constraints affect implementation quality. So these findings confirm that the PPP's success is strongly leadership independent, particularly in complex multi-actor environments. The fourth objective, which was looking at the institutional coordination and collaboration, results indicated that institutional coordination emerged as a critical constraint and the enabling factor in PPP performance. Among the key coordination, it was actually noted that the key coordination challenges include fragmented institutional mandates, weak interagency collaboration, lack of integrated information systems, among other issues. So in short, these inefficiencies increase transaction costs and also limited program accessibility, where coordination mechanisms are stronger and PPPs show higher efficiency and the better SME outcomes, confirming that coordination directly influences partnership effectiveness. And the last objective, which was looking at the influence of government, governance and institutional arrangement on SMEs, the results showed that there is a strong and sustainable, significant, a statistically significant relationship between institutional support and also SME performance. The key empirical results showed that the PPPs support actually is the strongest predictor of the revenue growth and also government support. And also, if SMEs have to survive, it was noted that actually survival likelihood increases when the government actually supports, and also PPPs have also received enough support. In short, and what we would say, this study sets actually out to examine how public-private partnerships influence SME development, with particular focus on the roles, leadership, institutional coordination, and also governance structures. The findings demonstrate that PPP outcomes are not determined by isolated policy instruments or financial input, but the interaction of the state, capability, institutional arrangements, and also collaborative governance processes. So this position actually PPPs as a complex governance system consistent with the contemporary public administration policy theories. In other words, it also, the empirical results confirm that the PPPs in Malawi function as embedded governance structures, systems, rather than discrete development projects. This aligns with the other researchers who have also noted that the PPPs operate within the broader governance ecosystems where outcomes are shaped by institutions. In terms of the public policy sector and leadership effects, from a public sector perspective, the findings highlight that the state capability remains a central dominant of the PPP success. However, the moderate effectiveness ratings observed in the study suggest that implementation capacity remain uneven. So this actually delays in service delivery, administration, and also in effectiveness and coordination gaps, reducing the overall impact of the PP interventions. Critical aspect is that the leadership and the administration capacity are not complementary features of the PPPs, but rather they are fundamental requirements for their success. In terms of the institutional constraints and the access barriers, institutional theory provides strong explanatory power of understanding the structural barriers affecting PPPs. However, key barriers include the high collateral requirements. What we've noted in our study that many SMEs are failing to access the private partnerships because they don't have the enough financial muscles. However, even for them to access financial services from the service providers, it also becomes a challenge. So because it takes a long time, there are long processes, complex application procedures, and also among other information asymmetry, where very few people have the information and it becomes very challenging for other people to get the information. In terms of the collaborative governance and the interaction quality, the findings show that the PPP participants perform better in innovative market expansion and also export readiness compared to non-participants. Meaning that those few SMEs that are participating in the PPPs are able to export their produce and they're able to get better returns, much as it is not the majority who have access to these PPPs. And in terms of the integrated governance interpretation, what we are saying is that if people would want to understand these issues, use of the three theories that we actually consulted would help to support the PPPs that actually are struggling, as we have learned in the Malawi context. When you compare these findings from the Malawi perspective and also the global context, it has been noted that these findings are consistent with the international evidence across both the developing and also developing economies. In Southern Africa, for example, weak coordination and fragmented institutional systems continue to limit PPP effectiveness. And also globally, governance quality has been identified as also a key determinant for the PPP success. The Malawi findings are particularly significant in showing that even under conditions of resource constraints, improvement in leadership and coordination can substantially improve PPP outcomes. In terms of the implications for the Agenda 2063 and also developmental governance, the results have direct relevance for the Agenda 2063, which emphasizes capability institutions, inclusive growth, and also private sector-led development. So the study demonstrates that achieving these goals requires more than policy expansion. So in short, key priority areas that have to be taken into account is that we need to strengthen public sector leadership capacity, institutionalizing coordination mechanisms also across HSS, and improving transparency and accessibility of SME support systems. To conclude, the study demonstrates that the PPP's effectiveness in SMEs actually development is fundamentally a governance outcome shaped by the alignment of the state capability, institutional structure, and also collaborative interaction. In alignment to the AMDIN agenda, this study aligns strongly with the African management, the AMDIN, and also specifically, the study contributes to the AMDIN priorities in the areas of public sector capacity building, evidence-based policy and practice, and also collaborative governance and partnerships, including also the support of Agenda 2060 alignment, which it supports Africa's development vision for the highlighting PPPs as instruments for the inclusive economic growth and industrialization. So that's what we had in short. That in conclusion, the study is actually something that it can also be helpful to strong leadership enhancing coordination mechanism, which is in turn would improve actually SME participation and also performance outcomes, among other issues. Thank you very much, and that marks the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lamek Malikano Chimberob. Thank you very much. Let's give him a hand, please.
Don't worry about the other name. Just call me Lamek. It's okay. That is going to.
Thank you so much. Let's give him a hand, please. Wonderful. Thank you. The presentation on public-private partnerships. Let me take one or two questions. Comments? Did you put your hand up? Thank you. Prof? The mic, please. Is it moving somewhere?
Thank you for the presentation. Just a comment, not a question. I do think that I see 17% technology transfer took place in the PPP. And that is not surprising because PPPs are highly formalized through agreements, go through tender and procurement processes. So, and that usually, not that sometimes would inhibit innovation. So it would be incidental for PPPs to have a significant technology transfer. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comment. Any other questions? Thank you, please.
My name is Mutintana Wianda. I'm librarian for National Institute of Public Administration, NIPA, Zambia. Thank you very much for the insightful presentation and the study.
Sorry, I think in my network, I don't know. Yeah, in terms of the capacity, there is a need for strengthening the background or maybe these PPPs at the lower level, so that they should be able to at least gain the support of being connected to the other possible supporters. Because if we don't strengthen them at the community level, then that becomes a challenge. So I would encourage that the AMDIN members should really support the PPPs by strengthening them, giving them the capability that they should be able to connect to the potential supporters, so to speak.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Let's please give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. Let's, is everybody still okay? Can we push on to the last presentation? Yes, thank you. From fragmentation to functional alliance, the EMPA IDM strategic collaboration as a model for public sector capacity development in Eswatini, and the author is Karabo by Pindi. Please, sir, over to you. 15 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Dumelang sanibonani nonke. We are presenting our transformation process. I am part of a team of 3. It's not every day, session chair, that you have someone co-authoring a paper with their board chairperson. So let me just acknowledge that. I am Karabo Baipiti, Country Director, IDM, Institute of Development Management, Eswatini. But this work that we are sharing with ourselves this afternoon is actually a teamwork. I am joined with the principal, acting principal, Eswatini Institute of Management and Public Administration. And it's a project that we are doing together with our Ministry of Public Service under the leadership of our Undersecretary in the Ministry of Public Service, both of which are with me here this afternoon. Yes, please do clap our heads for us. How? Just a bit of background. I here to struggle to make sense of the word IMPA. We are 2 PSTIs in Eswatini, public service training institutions in Eswatini, that are more or less brother and sister, in the true sense that we are actually in the same physical location. You walk from across a corridor from one institute to the other. That have been in existence, with IDM having been established in 1974. And NIPAM a little bit later than that, both of which function under the Ministry of Public Service. And we are documenting our process of transformation, strategic alliance and transformation that started last year, which I will get into in a minute just to provide context. However, just to ground this case study, we are highlighting that, as has been echoed since this morning, governments across Africa, and especially in countries where management development institutions and public administration and management institutions exist, governments have invested significantly in such PSTIs. However, I think it is widely acknowledged, as has been echoed, that service delivery failures and governance deficits persist. And what our case study is looking at is an under-examined contributor, which is institutional fragmentation. And more specifically, fragmentation in the sense that in the case of Eswatini, you have parallel training bodies with overlapping mandates competing for the same limited resources. Like I've already established, we are 2 PSTIs that are in the same, under the same Ministry of Public Service, sharing the same resources from the same ministry, competing for the same resources, in the same physical location. And we are highlighting here that Eswatini exemplifies both the paradox and an emergent response. A bit of history as well. IDM was actually established as a tripartite institution. A little bit of an interesting history here is that it was founded by the 3 governments of Botswana, Lesotho, and Eswatini in 1974, at a time when both countries were at the formative period of their public sector development trajectory. That partnership came to an end after 51 years of having contributed significantly to providing capacity in public sector of the 3 countries. That partnership came to an end last year, but it also provided an opportunity. It created a structural disruption and a strategic opening at the same time to reshape public sector training ecosystem in Eswatini. So when the dissolution of the tripartite came into effect, the cabinet of the government of Eswatini, or the Kingdom of Eswatini, directed that the Institute of Development Management should be transformed through strategic collaboration with IMPA, its sister college, to serve national development priorities. So we are documenting that strategic collaboration through transformation. And I would like to, at this point, highlight that the rationale is fourfold. First, the Kingdom of Eswatini currently operates under a strategic direction that is provided by what we call in the kingdom the Inkwe mandate, which has been encapsulated into the program of action. It is the program of action serves as the national strategic plan for the Kingdom of Eswatini. And of interest here is that the government of Eswatini directed in 2024 that the Institute of Public Admin and Management, IMBA, be transformed into a national school of governance. So alongside that transformation is that of IDM, and that transformation is complemented by the structural disruption, which is the IDM dissolution, following the government of Botswana's withdrawal from the tripartite between Botswana, Lesotho, and Eswatini in 2024. That's another rationale. We are also highlighting, or the government through the Ministry of Public Service noted that to enforce or to ensure that there is sufficient enough capacity to drive forward the public service reform, the fragmentation of the two institutions was creating an issue, and that it was necessary to ensure that the two institutions transform alongside each other to be able to drive public sector service delivery, to be able to drive His Majesty in Eswatini's vision, which is to inculcate a new culture of public service excellence culture. So it was necessary to ensure that the two institutions collaborate strategically through this alliance to reduce program duplication, to ensure that the limited resources are set optimally, and to reduce critical gaps in learning pathways that currently exist or that existed before the transformation started. So the strategic opportunity here is that of complementarity, where IDM brings its academic depth, accredited qualifications, and a regional network, since it existed in the previous arrangement through a regional tripartite arrangement with Lesotho and Eswatini. While IMPA, the Institute of Management and Public Administration, brings its program of action legitimacy, its public service proximity, and government system familiarity. So this functional alliance that we are documenting and sharing with ourselves today pulls this asymmetric assets without the disruption of a merger. Literature does indicate that a lot of MDIs and public management institutions transformed through processes of merger. We have deliberately sought to avoid the complexities that come with a merger process, to ensure that we are able to deliver efficiency that neither institution can achieve independently in the short term. So that is the brief history that I have shared of the two institutions, but what we are demonstrating here is that they have complementary strengths. I have spoken to the fact that what is of interest in this process of transformation and what underscores it, and most importantly gives it policy legitimacy, is the fact that the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini has, through a process that led to development of a national strategic plan, which we refer to as the program of action, that spans a period of 5 years from 2024 to 2029, which is also the period through which, or during which the current government is in office, that 5-year term, has directed already that the Institute of Management and Public Administration should be revitalized through being established as a national school of governance, and further that civil servant competency development should be prioritized in the government of Eswatini as part of the desire by the government to drive civil public service reform and to inculcate a new culture, service-oriented culture, being a culture of excellence. So there are a number of areas already that have been highlighted in the program of action that the government has specifically directed the two institutions to provide public service training on, including project management, including human resource management, change management, diplomacy, most interestingly, patriotism, which I would be happy to engage around what it means for us in Eswatini and how it relates to public service excellence. Mindset change, service excellence. So these have already been identified in the government strategic plan as key areas that the two institutions should drive public sector training on to ensure that there is capacity building in these areas to effectively position the public service to deliver government programs and policies. Another area of interest is on research institution streamlining, that the national strategic plan mandates the alignment of local research institutions with the government think tank. And we're highlighting here that this deliverable is directly supported by our collaborations joint research and policy lab pillar. We have also sought to ensure that this transformation is grounded on theory and on literature. We are highlighting here 3 theories that I'll not go into detail on, especially that I've noted that the previous paper and the previous speaker spoke to the collaborative governance theory that provides 4 analytical domains, including starting conditions. And under starting conditions, one of the requirements is that, or that this collaborative governance theory provides as a success factor, is that there should already be a history of collaboration between the 2 institutions. There should be some type of institutional design that provides clear guidelines around how the governance or the collaboration is going to take place. But we are also highlighting the resource dependence theory as another theory that anchors this transformation and the federated alliance model. In the interest of time, allow me to go into this slide, which is perhaps the one that I would want to speak to a little bit on. That this collaboration between IMPA and IDM, strategic collaboration, is one of a functional alliance, not a merger. We deliberately sought to avoid a merger because of the complexities that come with that process, including also the resource requirements, the cost, both in terms of time and funds. And we also deliberately wanted to preserve the 2 institutional identities while aligning programs, operations, and resources towards shared national development objectives. 6 pillars, including joint training programs. So what we are currently undergoing in phase 1 of this collaboration or undertaking is that IMPA is developing their what they currently have in terms of their training as non-credit bearing short courses. A process is already underway to develop them now as credit-bearing short courses to incentivize participation in training on these short courses. And what we would also do is that we are developing an articulation pathway that would enable public servants who train in the short courses, credit-bearing short courses under IMPA, to be able to articulate those through credit accumulation and transfer into the full degree and diploma qualifications at IDM, so that that training can be recognized and used for purposes of further education and training at IDM. We are also of interest, and particularly to AMDIN, we are establishing joint consultancy and advisory services. One of the policy recommendations that we have made to government is to establish a joint consultancy office, both joint in the sense that the consulting services would be delivered through IMPA and IDM, and government, the policy recommendation that has been made to government is that there should be one stop for consultancy and advisory services to all government ministries and departments and state-owned entities in Eswatini. That would enable IDM and IMPA to provide this consultancy and advisory services to the Kingdom of Eswatini, to the entire public service and state-owned enterprises. We are also resource sharing and capacity pooling. Currently, we are looking at modalities around sharing staff between the 2 institutions to make sure that the staffing deficiencies that we currently have, the 2 institutions currently have, we exploit those through resource sharing. We are looking at establishing a joint learning management system as another way of maximizing on available resources. And furthermore, we are strategically and intentionally looking at engaging with peers in the region through platforms such as this one. In December, the Kingdom of Eswatini successfully hosted the NIPAM 44th conference. That again was a strategic decision made by the government to ensure that we engage on ongoing conversations around and learn from peers around issues of public sector professionalization and capacity building. So we, at this point, are at phase 1, which started in March 2026 and would end in June, where we have developed a concept note that has already been presented to the Minister, the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Public Service, and is yet to be presented to His Excellency the Prime Minister in Eswatini for approval and adoption and endorsement. We are on a process of signing an MOU with NSG, and we are engaging in a process of culture audit to ensure that processes or issues of organizational culture are looked into and they do not become an impediment. And this process of this collaboration would go on over 4 phases going into April next year. We have also undertaken some desktop, but also virtual benchmarking with some sister institutions, some of whom are here at this conference, including NSG South Africa, including KSG Kenya, MSG Malawi, and Mauritius. We conducted virtual benchmarkings with both South Africa, Kenya, and Mauritius, and we did desktop benchmarking. Different lessons emerging that also influencing our strategic collaboration, including legislative mandate, including independent governance, and the need to ensure that there is governance processes and structures, including how we can exploit digital infrastructure. The Kenya and Mauritius cases are especially interesting to us. We are looking at establishing or going online in Eswatini to ensure that we can improve and enhance access to public sector training in the Kingdom of Eswatini, and we are looking specifically at the case studies in Kenya and Mauritius. And networks and partnerships as another critical success factor that has come up through the benchmarking and collaboration. As I move towards the end, Session Chair, strategic opportunities and implementation risks that we have also applied ourselves to, including policy authority. And for us, it gives us a lot of confidence and assurance that this strategic collaboration, there is buy-in from the highest office in the land. As I indicated, we report directly through our Honourable Minister to the Prime Minister's office because, again, this is an issue that is part of the national strategic plan, this strategic collaboration. The government has already determined that they intend on professionalizing the public service and ensuring that they implement reforms that are targeted towards introducing a culture of public service excellence in the Kingdom of Eswatini. So policy authority is a strategic opportunity for us, fiscal efficiency, research credibility, the joint research agenda or the joint research policy lab that we are looking at establishing is an opportunity that we're exploiting through this strategic collaboration and also regional positioning. There are, however, some implementation risks that we are also aware of or alive to, including issues of institutional culture, in the sense that while the two institutions are under the Ministry of Public Service, structurally and governance-wise, they are very, very different. IMPA is a government department in the government structure. Within the government structure, IDM is a private company that is 100% wholly owned by the government of Eswatini. Different dynamics that possibly create some risks in the term of institutional, in the form of institutional culture. However, we have put in place mechanisms around that, and also political continuity. And for us, the very fact that this issue of the transformation has already been directed through the National Strategic Plan provides policy authority that legitimizes this collaboration even beyond the term of office for the current government. Just in conclusion, the last slide, a few policy recommendations. One to the government of Eswatini that we have made and will be making also, we have made to the ministry, but we'll be presenting also to the Office of the Prime Minister, include prioritizing enabling legislation in the current parliamentary calendar, embedding a public service training vote within the Ministry of Public Service. And we have also highlighted even to the Honourable Minister that the current strategic plan is an optimum political window to achieve this strategic alliance. Governance framework, we have developed detailed terms of reference and governance processes to ensure that this strategic collaboration is guided fully and that there are clear decision-making procedures and conflict resolution mechanisms to facilitate and ensure better chances of achieving success through this collaboration. And to AMDIN, our recommendation and our commitment as a Swatini is that we would be documenting this case study over the next 5 years and reporting in terms of the deliverables so that we can build some detailed evidence-based information on how MDI reform in a small SADC state can successfully be implemented and our own success stories and challenges. Thank you.
Let's give him another round of applause, please. Come. Thank you very much, Karabo Baipendi. Thank you very much for your paper and for dressing up for us. We love it. Awesome, wonderful. Colleagues, let me invite questions, observations, appreciation. I just have a deja vu moment principle on how the transition for us, SAMD, to Palama, to School of Government, it was scary. Please, any comments, questions? Thank you, ma'am. I see other delegates are joining us, so we'll be done in a minute.
Thank you. I was wondering on the point that you mentioned on the training on patriotism for public servants, and how do you ensure that that does not become indoctrination, and why you are focusing on it specifically? Thank you.
Patriotism, lovely question. Anybody else? Comment? Bandi, this side, please.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that the two institutions, you're still going to leave them as standalones. Is there possibility of bringing them together and they still can have autonomy, but being under one umbrella, because in a university you've got the different schools, the different faculties that you can have, or a college. Would you consider that so that at least you are recognized as one unit, but the other one is focusing on the shared learning programs, you're focusing on the other issues as well?
Thank you. Any other question? No? Again, I love the opportunity to ask questions, Karabo. The future is shooting in the dark, So my question is, the future positioning of this entity, IMPA and IDM, heading to this future vision, and the future is changing as you are transforming. So for AMDIN to support you, to be relevant and future fit for the public service to come, what would you be asking for? What would be the ask in the transition that you are in? What would be the ask to AMDIN to support you to be relevant and future fit for your future public service? Make sense? Thank you. Please, can we just bring the mic here?
Thank you, Session Chair and panelists for the question. Allow me to start with the last one, because it's actually an area of active interest for us. First off, we are actually looking at formalizing our membership with AMDIN in the next month. That has already been determined and directed for by our principals, including our board chairperson at IDM. Because for us, AMDIN is a network through which as we undergo this process of transformation, it forms it provides a platform to learn from. Almost, and I speak under correction, most of the institutions that are represented here have undergone, as you have rightly indicated, your own history in South Africa. They have undergone some type of transformation or the other. We have already approached our colleagues in Malawi and Mauritius that we will have a side meeting with them while we're here. to learn from their own experiences and how that can actually inform our own development and transformation trajectory. So for us, this platform provides that opportunity to be able to engage, learn, appreciate, and take lessons that we would then situate and contextualize in our Eswatini context. So we are quite excited to be here. I will move on to the next question from Acting DG NSG. The possibility of bringing the two institutions together, that has actually been explored. Initially, that was the direction from government last year. But when we looked at the challenges that come with the process of a merger, and especially the costs and the time, the priorities, the government priorities of the day, it was then determined, and we fully support actually that decision that we transform, maintain our own independent autonomy, and continue to exist in the way we are, but we actually share resources and collaborate on a number of other areas as we transform. A little bit of context. Eswatini, in higher education, there's a measure that we track, gross enrollment rate for higher education. The countries that are doing well in SADC, including Namibia, South Africa, Mauritius, they're at about 25%. And that basically means of a university going youth group, age group, how many of them that are actually eligible for admission into higher education actually get a place in higher education. Like I said, for the region is that most of the countries that are doing well are at about 25%. In Eswatini, we're actually quite behind the curve at about 10%. So it basically means that a lot of youth that are eligible, have done well enough, are capable of actually gaining admission to higher education, that are still left outside the system. So one of the key considerations that we are looking at that is informing why we want to maintain institutional autonomy is to make sure that these two institutions can actually grow and increase access within the national higher education ecosystem so that we can provide more opportunities for Emaswati to actually enroll at home. So that's part of the key considerations. But I know US might have one or two other issues to add there. And another interesting question, the first one, why the emphasis, why the focus on patriotism, and how do we ensure that it doesn't become indoctrination? A very fair question, one which we also apply ourselves to. The government of the day, through the program of action, has actually identified that as a strategic deliverable through this process of, in the strategic plan. And I want to highlight the ambition here is to ensure that as we reform the public service, and especially I'm speaking to the component of service excellence, as we speak to that, as we make that a topical issue, as we reform, we implement reforms, we actually go back to our roots and we look at the key values within the Siswati culture. That actually at a time when values like Ubuntu, values like service excellence, values like just passion, professionalism, and service were still core. What it is that we got right during that time that we then lost as we modernized. So we are looking at some of those values and how we can actually embed them into the culture of public service excellence, because they are the very core tenets of our traditional systems. And we are looking at how we can bring them into the modern conversation. We are looking at how we can bring them into the academic conversation, and especially into our own leadership identity, our own leadership philosophy, and make sure that we refer to something that we're already familiar with, rather than borrowing foreign concepts and theories from far abroad. So that is the general idea. But you have a fair point around how to ensure that it doesn't become indoctrination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment, question? None? Ladies and gentlemen, it seems the weather is turning, but before we exit, please, there is a roving register moving around. Please make sure before you exit that you have signed. Can I please ask somebody just to lift where the register is? please help me. The register, it's a paper. You'll move it around for me? Thank you very much. Again, just Batupele first, we do want to thank our people, Lamek Online, Prof. Daniel that is with us, and Karabo that is with us. Can we please do a Batupele clap? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and congratulations and thank you very much. Just the announcement. The cocktail evening is at 5:30 this afternoon. They say it's going to be in the amphitheater, but I see the weather is closing, so I'm not sure what our plan B is going to be. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank myself for being such an awesome session chair and for keeping time. Thank you very much. The session is closed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.